In this special edition of the Rant Files, I'm going to be talking about MMOs. Massively multiplayer online role-playing games in length. MMO in short, or MMORPG. Particularly subscription-based MMOs. I might have ranted about this in the past, but I've forgotten if I have or not, so I'm going to do it again. I don't want to knock subscription-based services. I don't want to knock people who use subscription-based services. This is simply my own personal experience with this modicum of gaming and my history with it. This is going to be a story time rant. It all started in 2006. We had just purchased a new Windows XP computer. Or was it Vista? You know, I don't think we ever had an XP, which was superior to the Vista, might I opinionally add. So we had a Vista computer, and I was recently getting into the PC internet world at the time. I was 13, 14, somewhere around there. I was frequenting the Yahoo Games chat rooms until I came across a couple people who were talking about MMOs, two in particular. World of Warcraft and RuneScape. RuneScape was the game I played. Why? It was cheaper. Of course. It's all about saving that cash, my friend. World of Warcraft turned me off because it cost too much per month, and I personally didn't think it was worth it. I didn't think it was worth it to pay that much for a game like that. And of course, I didn't want to pay to play RuneScape right away, because it had a free-to-play server. Why not try it out first? Where people who are not classified as members could join and enjoy their experiences in a limited world. It was limited. There was a lot of stuff you couldn't do, but there was enough that you could do to offer hundreds of hours of gameplay. And you could try it out and see if you liked it. And as it turns out, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Less than a year later, I convinced my folks to buy me the membership subscription. I had the auto-renewal monthly subscription, so I never ran out. I would play RuneScape for going on 6 to 7 years from then on. And I explored the entire world. I did most of the quests. I skilled every skill up to level 60 at the very least, even the ones I hated. And there was a lot I hated. I could tell you, I could rant for hours about one in particular called Dungeoneering, and another one called Farming. I hated both of those. But I would play this game for 6 to 7 years. I would take breaks in between. I would play every day for a year, and then I would take 4 or 5 months off, and then I would come back. But the subscription was still active during those 4 or 5 months. Oh boy, I'm sorry about that, folks. That's fine. I played the heck out of this game, though, despite those breaks I took. When you get a membership subscription, you want to get that membership armor, the stuff that you couldn't get in your free-to-play server. So, for example, in RuneScape, the free-to-play maximum strength armor that you could get was rune armor. So, it would go from, so in terms of combat armors, you would have your bronze armor, your iron armor, your steel armor, your mithril armor, your adamant armor, and then your rune armor. Each one will require an extra 10 points in your defense to equip. The rune armor was the greatest you could get, and it was fairly cheap. It was pretty affordable. A lot of the people who did player versus player stuff would get rune armor since it was cheap to get, and if they died, nobody cared if you lost it. So when you get the membership, though, there's a lot more that you could get. You now have granite armor, you have dragon armor, you have god armor. And they've even added stuff after that. There's quest-related armor, there's quest-related weapons, and all sorts of special stuff that you couldn't get in the free-to-player worlds. And you wanted them. And you got them. You got the goodies, the gears, the weapons, the armor, the food, the healing items, and more. There were hundreds, thousands of members-exclusive items and stuff that you wanted. You wanted to get them. So that's exactly what I did. A lot of these rare combat armor, weapons, etc., they were crazy expensive, though. For example, you got your rune armor, which averaged out to about 60 to 80,000 coins per purchase of the plate body. And then you had the dragon plate body, which at the time I was playing, ranged between 12 to 16 million coins. That's a lot of money. And to somebody like me, who was primarily a skiller more than combat, because, you know, RuneScape was very punishing with its combat. If you died, you would lose everything except the top 3 most expensive items in your inventory. There was a special skill that you could unlock which made that 4 items, but you still lost the majority of what you owned. So let's say you got your plate body, your helmet, your weapon, and maybe your shield or something. You would lose the gloves, the boots, the plate legs, the food, maybe the money in there that you were stored. You would lose a lot of things, and I hated that. I completely hated that. So I would shy away from combat, even though I wanted to get all the fancy armors. So what I would do was, we called it skilling. Skilling is basically what we call grinding a non-combat based skill, such as mining, fishing, wood cutting, fire making, cooking. What else did they have? Herb lore, fletching, smithing. What else is there? There was a bunch of them. There was a bunch of them. And for me, for example, you would spend all day fishing. You would find a dock somewhere close to a storage building, which we called banks. So you would go to the dock, you would fish your fish, fill out your inventory. You had 27 spaces, or if you had a high summoning level, you could summon one of those things called a pack yak. You could summon the pack yak and put your crap into the pack yak, and then take your inventory and the pack yak's inventory, go to your bank, and store all your fish, then go back and repeat the process X amount of times until you got incredibly bored, or until... And most of us kept going even after we were incredibly bored, because we needed to get the skilling done. We needed to boost the levels, because when you fished, you would get fishing experience. There was a fishing skill. That's why we called it skilling. The higher your fishing skill, the better fish you could fish. That's very simple to explain. So I would spend all day fishing. I would spend all week fishing. I would get thousands of sharks, thousands of swordfish, thousands of lobster. I would cook all of the stuff, which you'd get cooking experience for doing. You would cook all of the fish you fished, and then you sold it. You would find a selling medium. You would either go to before what we had, the Grand Exchange, we called it banks. You would go to the bank and you would shout, "I'm selling X amount of items," and someone would come to you, initiate a trade, give you X amount of money for your X amount of product. And eventually we got the Grand Exchange and we skipped the middleman. We just said we were selling this much for this price, and then somebody comes in and says, "Alright, I want this much of this, and I'm paying this price for it." And the trade is automatic. You would get your money, and then you would leave. So you would do that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. You would usually obviously do something else while skilling, because I doubt anybody would just want to sit there staring at a screen fishing for hours and hours on end. I did a lot. I mean, I guess we do all the time. But eventually, you can see all the work that we put in to get that one item, that one expensive armor. So, when we fished the 10,000 shark, we sold the 10,000 shark, and we got, let's say, 1,000 coins per shark. So that's 1,000 times, 10,000 times 1,000, that's like 10 million, I think. So you would get your 10 million, that's still shy of about 12 to 16 million, so you needed to fish some more fish, you would fish some more fish, and then you'd sell your fish, you get your quota premium for the plate body. You would initiate the trade on the Grand Exchange to buy this plate body. And then, boom, it's yours. And you felt amazing to have that item. You worked for so long to get that item, and now it's yours. Or is it? Skilling, needless to say, that type of humdrum got boring fast. I wonder if I should have fished at Catherby instead of Jetis, though. Clarify, Catherby was where all the other people fished. Chatisto was a quest-exclusive area where you had to initiate a quest to get access to this area. There was not too many people there, and there was a bank close, but it wasn't as close as Catherby. But people went there if they didn't want to deal with the people at Catherby. But Catherby was where a lot of other people fished, and you could meet a lot more players and have conversations and not be as bored fishing. There were a lot of skilling areas like that. But anyone who knows me knows I hate multiplayer-based stuff and social activity, so I would often go out of my way to find skilling spots where absolutely nobody was. Why? Because I was an antisocial dumb-diddly-dumpkins. But I liked it, though. It made me more immersed when there was nobody around. Immersion breaking users running amok always took me out of playing the game. I would eventually realize I would get out of the immersion into the fantasy world and start realizing, oh, this is just a game and there's all these other people, and I'm not having as much fun anymore because of all the other people there. I usually like games I can get lost in, and I can only get lost in it when I know that nobody else on this planet is there with me. I enjoyed playing by myself, though. Years go by. After a while, the PC we got now, a Windows 7 Trooper, we got that around 2011, 2012. I started to fall behind the times. It started to fall behind the times. It couldn't run all the programs as the years passed. So it eventually ran out of being relative to the time period, because it was a cheap PC even when we bought it. So 2 to 3 years later, it was already outdated. I have a rant about technology in another video, maybe, but I don't want to get into that. But it was outdated, and I had a measly 4 gigabytes of RAM. 4! RuneScape needed about 1 to 2, and I had another program that already took 1 to 2, so those 2 alone was using up everything, and everything was so slow. I had to play RuneScape on minimum graphics settings. And it was still slow. I would get like under 30 frames per second, probably even under 20. So I had to give something up. I had to give a program up to speed up the other programs, and I gave up RuneScape. This is around 2014, 2015. I was in the middle of going to college at the time. I was focusing more on that. I was playing RuneScape a lot less and less often. Needless to say that when I stopped playing RuneScape, the credit card charge monthly subscription stuff ran out. We decided to cancel that, and I lost my membership to RuneScape. 7 years. The membership charge increased over the years, but I think at the time when I first did it in 2006, I think it was like $6 a month compared to World of Warcraft's $12 to $15 a month. So obviously RuneScape was the better buy. So let's say 7 years, if I'm going to average it, 7 years, $7 a month, I think my mental math would bring that around to roughly $588. It could be more, it could be a lot more than that, total, for playing as long as I did with that membership active. But that number, when I looked at that number, I thought to myself, wow. Thinking back to RuneScape, I feel horrible sometimes, because it's like, how do I describe this? Analogy time. Imagine you get a game. You get, like, say, PlayStation 1 game, PlayStation 2 game, blah, blah, blah. You put it in your console. You boot it up. It says, in order to make a save file, it's going to charge you monthly to play the game. So you do that. You start paying them X dollars every month in order to make your game, save your game, and keep playing. So you play and play and play, and you waste hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours on the game, until you decide you want to take a break. You stop paying to play the game. And then, let's say a couple years later, you decide, I want to play the game again. You go back to the game after a while. The save file says you can't load it without paying the toll. And you could load up the free save slot, it says. But all the weapons and armor and all that high-level stuff that you worked so hard to get becomes unusable. Because they're fancy stuff, and you need your subscription to use those. It's like... how do I put this? It's like... you don't own the game. You don't own what you worked for. You don't own the armor that you worked weeks skilling up all that money to buy. You don't own that god-tier god sword you spent so much time trying to procure. You don't own any of it. It's not yours. It was licensed to you. You could use it, so long as you paid the toll. Imagine paying to visit a private island. A private island that says that you could live here. You can use all the resources and the amenities to make a very successful livelihood here. But nothing was yours right away. Like, you didn't have the house, you didn't have all the furniture, you didn't have any of that. You had to procure the resources yourself. You had to build everything yourself. You had to make that livelihood for yourself, by yourself. So you did that. You worked to get your food, you worked to build your home, you worked to fish your fish, you worked to cut your wood, you worked to mine your ore, you worked to smelt your metals, you worked to craft your gear. And during all this time, you're paying someone for the luxury of being able to do all of that. And when you accomplish all of these great deeds, you worked so hard to accomplish, and you sit back and you look at all that is before you and you think, wow, I must be awesome. I've put together quite a hoard here. And then your money runs out, and they kick you off the island. And they say you can't take what you worked for with you. You can't take it with you off the island. It has to stay there. You can't visit the island. You could visit the island, but it's like looking at everything through a museum. You couldn't actually go to your house. You couldn't actually pick up all the stuff that you made. You could just look at it through a glass window. You couldn't open your massive bank account to add more stuff. Your bank account's locked to you. You couldn't do anything. Nothing that you worked for on that island is yours. It's not. You were paying someone for the license to work on this stuff, essentially, I guess. You're paying for the experience of playing the game. Your memories. Because I have a lot from this game. Even if the game and everything on it isn't yours, those memories, the experiences you had, the people you met, the conversations you've had, all that is yours. And I suppose that might be what you're paying for. But I don't know. What makes all that time you spend on it worth it? The experience alone? Because it's not what you work for to procure. That stops being yours when you stop paying them. It's not like a car. You can get a loan from the bank, and you can buy a nice car, and that car is yours so long as you keep making the payments. Here's the difference. Eventually, you will pay off that car if you keep making those payments. You will pay off that car, and that car is now yours. Nobody could take it from you. Well, technically they could, but let's not get to semantics. But that car is now yours, legally. The bank can't take it back because you paid for it. That's not like RuneScape. RuneScape is the car you go to the bank to pay to use, and you could drive it so long as you keep making the monthly payments. Forever. The payments don't run out. You never pay off this car. You can only drive it so long as you keep paying the money. And yes, before anyone says anything, yes, you can find ways to extend your membership on RuneScape with things like bonds and other such expensive commodities, but that requires playing the game a different way than you might want to play it, a different pace than you might want to play it. spending a lot of time to procure the money for a bond, instead of procuring the money for, say, a new weapon, or new armor, or skilling other stuff, or doing quests and things like that. It requires you to play the game a certain way to keep getting those bonds, to extend your membership play, and I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want my freedom in the game to play the way I wanted to play taken from me. I wanted to play the game the way I wanted, at my own pace, at my own luxury. But there's a toll booth in my way. On one hand, I completely understand subscription-based games. You pay so that they can keep getting updated. You pay so that they can keep adding new quests, new skills, new weapons, new armor, and all of that stuff, either monthly or bi-monthly or biannually. They keep adding new things to the game, and that's what you're paying for. Don't let anyone say that I don't think that that's not a good thing for subscription-based games to do, so that they get their revenue to keep improving upon what people are playing. That's great. But, personally for me, it'd be nice to have access to the things you worked hard to get, even after the membership runs out. When you log back into the RuneScape's free-to-play servers after your membership runs out, and you look at your fancy armor and weapons that you spent so much money on, that you spent so much time trying to procure, and you right-click on them, and it says, quote, "This is a member's item. Log into a member's server to use it," unquote. Pay the toll. You worked hard for that card, but it stops being yours the moment you stop paying. Ha, ha, ha. Pay the toll. These experiences, to me, make these types of games not worth it. I like owning what I play. I like owning what I watch. I like something I pay one time to get, and I never have to pay again. I never have to pay again to keep using it. It's mine forever. I think I'm a dying breed.